Well, good evening, everyone. I am Melissa Gilbert. I'm president of the board. Welcome to the October 12th Education Committee and supplementary regular board meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. This meeting is video recorded for the purpose of public broadcast and is being live streamed. All of the participants will be muted upon entry. We will have an opportunity for public comment through the chat feature regarding any topic, not just agenda items, but any topic, and they will be read by Mr. Roos, the district solicitor, when we announce it's time for public comment. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Welcome, everybody. Before I turn it over to Curriculum Department under Dr. McGloin, I want to say that this is, we're October 12th. We've now fully have phased in all of our elementary school students. They're K through 5, began today, and we're fully ready, and we're going to start with our secondary in another week. So we are in. Kids are sitting in desks, wearing masks, and having some and seeing friends and teachers, and teachers are really happy to see them. So with that, Dr. McGloin.
Thank you. Tonight we have 2 presentations. The first presentation will be on Civics Education Act 35, and the second presentation will be on Holocaust education. And we have Leslie Pratt, Ted Henneberry, and Paul McKenna to present for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pratt.
Good evening, everyone. So I am Dr. Leslie Pratt. I am the curriculum supervisor for secondary humanities. And our first presentation is on Act 35 of 2018. So Act 235 of 2018 is a Pennsylvania statute that gives 4 areas of guidance for a civics assessment. Those 4 areas of guidance are what the frequency of the assessment would be. And this particular assessment, as you can see, will be administered at least once to students grades 7 through 12. The statute provides an overview of the content that would be highlighted in this particular assessment. And as you can see, the content aligns to the already existing standards in Pennsylvania and emphasizes government, civics, economics, and history education. The form of the assessment is something that each individual school district decides. And so the school district will make a decision for what the assessment will look like. We'll make an assessment for what grade or grade levels the assessment will occur in. And we'll make a decision if they are going to use in either whole or part the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services test, which could be used by a school district to satisfy this requirement. The statute also outlines accountability. One very important piece about accountability is that successful completion of the assessment of civic knowledge is not a graduation requirement for individual students. Instead, the accountability is on the district to self-report aggregate information regarding the assessment results on our district website next year, and we'll also report that aggregate information to PDE in November 2021. Each school will give students who earned a perfect score a certificate of assessment, or a certificate of achievement for a perfect score. So how did we move forward with decisions for how we were going to put the Act 35 assessment in place? To begin to share that information, I'm going to turn the PowerPoint over to Dr. McKenna, who is going to talk about some questions we asked about the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Assessment.
Hi, I'm Paul McKenna from Harriton. So addressing that first bullet, upon review of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services questions, there were no surprises in terms of the required content. That is, the content deemed as essential by the government is clearly evident in the district's current curricula, grades 7 through 12. What is also clear, I think to the district credit, is that we focus on uncovering meaning rather than just covering content. And that's evident upon review of the vertical alignment of skill development laid out in the social studies skills matrix, grades 6 through 12. The Immigration Services and Citizenship Question Bank is limited really to basic comprehension questions. In the PowerPoint, these are referred to as level 1 depth of knowledge questions. To clarify, there are 4 levels of depth of knowledge questions. Each level denotes a greater level of complexity. For example, level 1 questions might ask for comprehension, definitions, level 2 for a summary, level 3 providing evidence, and level 4 to assess. And again, the citizenship and immigration test really didn't go beyond level 1 questions. So given that, last year, GovTeachers designed an assessment, so in anticipation of this, just to kind of get our feet in the water early, we designed an assessment that aligned with the government test in terms of content, but we also included more complexity in terms of the type of questions. And the results are reported on that table that you see. And the takeaways are that the baseline scores indicate that we were targeting the right content. That is, I mean, if kids absolutely, if they blew this test out of the water, we would wonder, well, why are we, uncovering this content and teaching the skills if the students have already mastered it? So the baseline scores indicated that we were on the right track in terms of the content and the skills we were addressing. And then based on post-intervention reports, it indicated that we were being effective in meeting those curricular expectations. Thanks.
Yes, hi, good evening. So my name is Chad Henneberry, and I'm the department chair at Lower Merion. I want to talk about how we ultimately developed the test on our own. So essentially, since we deemed that the citizenship test was not exactly up to our standards and didn't really ask the type of questions that we were looking for, we went back to the civics toolkit that was offered by the state online. We did a little bit of research into what they were looking for in designing an assessment. And essentially, there are 3 pillars of knowledge that they want us to assess on. Pillar 1 is civics knowledge, pillar 2 is civic skills, and pillar 3 would be civics action. So Paul and I went back and we looked through the existing curricula, both in government courses, but also U.S. history courses. And, we wanted to see, do we have these elements within our courses already? We found that we did, but the question is where best to have this assessment. I believe we came to the conclusion that they certainly would not have enough of the pillars of knowledge having just taken the U.S. history course. So we would want to give them the test at some point during senior year when they would have also been exposed to the content of the government course. So we narrowed it down that the senior year would be the most appropriate time to give this assessment that we would design. Now the next question is when during the year? Would this be during the midterm? Would it be part of a normal midterm exam? The challenge that we had was that the college prep and honors course curriculum is basically staggered differently than the AP government curriculum. So each of them covers essentially the same skills and topics, but it's in a different order entirely. So for example, in our honors course, as well as in our college prep course, the first semester, they would look at foundations of American government, the Constitution, political ideology and socialization, political parties, and media and interest groups. Whereas the AP students, which account for about 25% of our student body, would be taking foundations of American democracy, interaction among branches of government, and civil liberties and civil rights within the first semester. So the midterm exam for an AP student, not only would it be at a different degree of rigor, but it also would be on different topics. So for example, in the honors course, civil liberties and civil rights is the last unit of assessment. So what we ultimately decided was that this would be a great culminating assessment taken by seniors when they've been exposed to all this information over the course of the year, as well as having taken US history and been exposed to the history, especially the civics, civil rights history. So we narrowed in that perhaps March or early April would be a great time to give this assessment. And from there, we began to work and backwards trace and design these 20 questions that meets these requirements. Thank you. Next slide, please.
And so this year in March, Lower Merion School District students who are participating in the US government class will take a Lower Merion School District designed Act 35 assessment. That assessment is a series of 20 DOK level 2 and 3 questions. It focuses on 5 sections. And you'll notice in our third bullet point, there is a section devoted to civil liberties and rights to talk specifically about what is our responsibility within a democracy. The assessment given in March does not count towards students' grades. The assessment is going to be created and cataloged in Performance Tracker or whatever district database we'll be using, because as a learning team, we'll be interested in looking at that information in some more detailed ways, both immediately after students take it, as well as over time. And a decision that we made based on the strategic plan is students will be able to retest. And so what we're looking for is for this to not just be a requirement. We're really excited for this to have the potential to be a learning opportunity. Students with perfect scores will be recognized with a certificate. And as per statute, the district will report to PDE and post on the district website the following 4 pieces of information, likely in November of next year. The number of students who took the exam, the number who passed the exam, the percentage of students who passed the exam, and the grade level and course of students without any individually identifiable information attached to it. So with that being said, next slide. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We really appreciate it. Are there any questions from board members? Perhaps you can raise your hand so I can see. Lucy?
Hi, oops, sorry. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to follow up with respect to, so most students in the district do take government as seniors, but I wanted to just confirm how it works if you are in the IB program, because a lot of those students take, if they're intending to go into the IB program, they will take US government as sophomores, because I understand that it is a requirement that a graduation requirement in the state. And I just wanted to confirm that it really doesn't, like, we're talking about it as a senior assessment, but that it doesn't really matter.
So students who have taken the Gov course will have the requisite skills to be successful on this assessment, even if they are taking Gov as early as 10th grade.
So they're not taking the assessment in the class, they're taking the assessment as a senior, sort of separate from any of their classes.
Well, they would take this wherever they are taking Gov, because it would be aligned to their Gov course. And if students are taking this course as a 10th grader in Gov or a 12th grader in Gov, they would have the requisite knowledge to be successful on this assessment.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ben Driscoll?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. If I understood the presentation correctly, it's 20 questions. And my question is more on, if we are reporting seems to me on the website, a pass fail, it seems to me there could be, is there a hard line, like you get 15 or more, you passed, 14 or less, you failed, whatever that means. But means you at 14 questions correct, yes, you failed, I guess, by that measure, but you also came pretty darn close. So how does that, I'm just wondering how that's going to be reported out, because when people hear failure, they think they got none right when they got pretty close to passing? If that's, maybe I misunderstood, if you don't mind clarifying.
No, I'm happy to clarify. And so in terms of the pass rate, we are going to use the grade scale that's in place at the time for passing. We're also building in the retest option specifically for those, specifically with that question in mind. The idea of this isn't a test that's meant to be some kind of gatekeeper, but we are trying to structure this so that it can be a genuine learning opportunity for students. And so if a student takes the assessment and say they have 14 out of 20 questions, to be able to have a conversation with their gov teacher and say, hey, can we maybe review some of these topics and ideas? And what's most important is that you understand some of these concepts that we think are really fundamental. And, would you like to try to do this again?
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Deborah Finger?
Thank you. Certainly as an educator, I love the idea of a retest because we're really trying to get students to learn and understand and make meaning of content and concepts. So with that said, because it does not count towards a grade, there's not necessarily is there a requirement, or there's not? It's voluntary if they want to retest.
It would be voluntary if students are interested in retesting.
Okay. And does the overall number have any sort of positive or negative impact on our school, or it's really just a reporting feature?
It's really just a reporting feature.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. So thank you again for the presentation and taking time to be with us this evening after what I know is a very long day. So thank you very much.
And then our second presentation of the evening is a brief overview of Act 70 of 2014. So we can go to the next slide. So to frame Act 70 of 2013, the Social Studies Department chairs will bookend this presentation, first outlining the real world implications for why this is necessary, and then talking about how this is realized in our curriculum. And in the center of the presentation, I'll talk through some of the language of the statute. Okay, and to begin the presentation, we have Mr. Henneberry, who's the Lower Merion Social Studies Department chair.
Thank you. So obviously, we've been working with Act 70 for quite a while now and making sure that looking at genocide and civil liberties are ingrained within our curriculum. But just in conversations with Dr. Pratt, Dr. McKenna and I had some really great insights. And Dr. Pratt brought to our attention a recent survey that was just shared this September, the U.S. Millennial Holocaust Knowledge and Awareness Survey. And I think the results were quite interesting. 93% of Pennsylvania respondents had heard of the Holocaust, with 69% saying that they first learned about the Holocaust in school. So that shows the importance of education of genocide and of the Holocaust within our curriculum. 78% of Pennsylvania respondents knew about Hitler's crimes. 89% knew that the Jewish people were victims of anti-Semitic violence. So those are fairly high scores, and it shows that for the most part in Pennsylvania, students are getting knowledge about the Holocaust specifically. Struggles, however, were that 33% of respondents did not know the Holocaust was associated with World War II. Perhaps it was taught separately, but it was never taught within the association of the war itself. 33% of students taking this in Pennsylvania could not name a single concentration camp or ghetto, and 52% reported Holocaust denials or distortions on social media, which perhaps is the most troubling of the results of this survey. So what this shows is that students today if they're not being taught this within the curriculum of their schools, they're not getting it. And this is going to lead to obviously ignorance of these events, but also potentially dangerous distortions on social media. So this gave extra impetus for our work in making sure that these topics were ingrained within our curriculum. Thank you. And next slide, please.
And so as we talk about Act 70, which was passed in 2014, I do want to highlight that Governor Corbett signed this law into legislation, and the primary goal of the law was to encourage Pennsylvania schools to teach facts about the Holocaust, genocide, and human rights violations. And so the idea of Pennsylvania having explicit direction to talk about the atrocities of the Holocaust as a matter of curriculum is something that doesn't exist across all states. And it is also something that, as a social studies team, we were wondering, is this perhaps why Pennsylvania schools in that 50-state survey at least scored at the top end of the survey? They at least scored in the higher parts of the survey. But then we also look at the results and we see there's still a lot of work to do. And if we go to the next slide, what Act 70 does is it provides curricular guidance should schools embrace the instruction of the Holocaust, genocide, and human rights violations. It provides guidance that instruction should be age appropriate, it should be sequential. Most importantly, it should communicate the connection between intolerance and genocide. So talking about horrific events in history as if they are standalone events, and not talking about the social events that surrounded them and preceded them, and to think about how potentially small acts of intolerance lead to larger social atrocities. It is one of the elements that is outlined in the instructional guide, and it's one of the elements when Dr. McKenna speaks on the next slide, he'll be able to highlight how we've embedded that specifically in the curriculum even before Act 70 was passed. The statute also provides specific guidance to PDE to provide support to districts throughout the state. And so this instruction has been a part of our district curriculum, especially at the high school level, in Global Studies 1 and Global Studies 2, in the US History course. In some districts where it is not, or it was not especially tightly intertwined, there were resources that were provided through PCSS, which is the Pennsylvania Social Studies Teachers Organization, the Pennsylvania Council of Social Studies. PDE also entered into a partnership with Newsella to build tech sets, to build groups of materials and primary sources to support grade appropriate conversations about the Holocaust specifically, but also about genocide and other human rights violations. PDE also formed a partnership with Justice O'Connor's iCivics project that looks specifically at civics education. And from 2016 to 2018, there was an initiative for intermediate units to provide workshops to support teachers in having conversations about challenging topics. Go to the next slide, please. Act 70 had also laid out some accountability. The accountability measures for Act 70 are different than Act 35 because remember, Act 70 encourages districts. It doesn't require districts to teach the Holocaust, genocide, and human rights. The accountability measure is built by the fact that when this was passed, there was a small committee that was formed, and their task was to survey every school district in the state of Pennsylvania. And they asked a series of questions regarding, does this instruction occur in your district? When does it occur? At what grade level? And what students benefit from it? And by statute, if fewer than 90% of school districts self-reported that they did not offer instruction on the Holocaust, genocide, and human rights, then and only then would the State Board of Education craft regulations requiring it. So in December 2017, that small subcommittee came back and reported that 93% of Pennsylvania schools reported that they were already providing instruction. So no explicit regulatory guidance requiring instruction was created. But that doesn't mean that we don't think it's incredibly important, and that's part of the reason why we're bringing it to this board presentation. So what does Act 70, specifically Holocaust instruction, look like in our school district? I'll turn it over to Dr. McKenna.
Hi, so a review of our centralized curricula documents indicate that we are well within compliance with the statute, but of course, we need to do better than that. The foundations for a comprehensive analysis of the causal factors of the Holocaust are really laid in 9th grade in the Global 1 course, through an analysis of anti-Semitism during the Reformation and the Enlightenment. In 10th grade, Global 2, the Holocaust and genocide in general are addressed through the framework of 20th century conflict. In addition to the Holocaust, the Armenian and Rwandan genocides are also uncovered. Furthermore, the formation of the State of Israel is addressed through the lens of global independence movements. Then moving on to 11th grade, US history, anti-Semitism is addressed within the context of the rise of nativism in the 20s, the resurgence of the Klan and the Red Scare. In terms of the Holocaust itself, the initial failure of the US, yes, the failure of the US is, to respond is addressed from political and social perspectives, while the liberation of the camps is addressed through the lens of the course of the war. Finally, we are constantly encouraging and making contemporary connections, because history, that's part of the value of history, is to make those contemporary connections. So unfortunately, there's still a lot of them to make. For example, Facebook positively actually finally has agreed through pressure by the ADL to remove material relating to Holocaust denial. So those things come up in class naturally. The president's latest executive order focusing on training relating to racial sensitivity training and things like that. Actually stopping that in federal agencies is certainly again ground for discussion of all the issues associated with human rights, and that we can link to our study of the Holocaust and beyond. Thanks.
And with that being said, are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Well, first, thank you to Dr. McKenna and Henneberry. I haven't met you before. I apologize. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for staying with us, because I didn't realize you were doing the second presentation as well. Let me look here for questions from the board. Shana Kalish.
Hi, thank you. That sounds really fantastic. I was just wondering if, as part of our curriculum, we tie issues of modern day anti-Semitism into that grounding in the Holocaust, things like the Tree of Life shooting and the cemetery that was defaced in Philadelphia last year.
So yes. So the idea of history as living, breathing, nuanced, punctuated with questions and dialogue, and us needing to look at events that are occurring in our world right now in light of the historical past is something that the social studies team invests a considerable amount of time and energy in. So.
Fantastic, thank you.
Lori Ackman.
Hi, and thank you so much for the presentation. My camera seems to be stuck on slow-mo or something, but
we can hear you.
Okay, in any case, I was wondering, and that was a great overview of how these issues are woven into various classes, which I think is really important. Has there, and maybe this was mentioned, ever been thought to adding an elective focused on this issue? So you could do more of a seminar class for those who would choose that or would like to do that.
So there was a discussion of a literature of the Holocaust elective, a semester elective in ELA. And so to look at things like A Long Way Gone, to Mendelssohn is on the Roof, to Elie Wiesel's Night, when the English department made the decision to focus on year-long courses, we did table some of the semester courses, and the Holocaust course, the English department thought a year of Holocaust literature might be very weighty, especially for students who are 16, 17, 18 years old. There's just a lot of trauma and atrocity, in addition to stories of great resilience. But so there was a discussion. It is something that has come up, and it still continues to come up in the English department, but it's not an elective we offer currently.
Okay, I'm glad to hear at least it was discussed and maybe worth considering at some point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mooring.
Thank you. And more of a comment than a question, you know, as this is my second time sitting through this at the CCOB, we also had this presentation, and I just really applaud the really laying out the expansion of it beyond just the Holocaust, but including other genocide and atrocities that happened both before and after, and how that is applied. And that was a question that we discussed at CCOB, and I really just appreciate the broadening and the explanation and laying it out. I think you guys have done an excellent job, so thank you.
Our social studies department is outstanding.
Lucy Klein, Ms. Klein.
Hi, yes, thank you. I wonder if you could speak a little bit to the presentation tonight talked about the Holocaust coming up starting in 9th grade, but I wonder if you could speak a little bit to some of the work that is going on in the middle schools as well, and sort of where that discussion is going.
So the Holocaust discussion in the middle school is much more pocketed than it is in the high schools. So there are places in gifted seminars where the study of mouse and other such texts becomes a specific area for focus. There are literature circle groups where books like Long Way Gone, which kind of straddles that bridge between young adult nonfiction and more adult nonfiction, are being read by students. But the more kind of systematic, guaranteed experience for talking about these issues, as a district, I feel very comfortable and confident saying we can guarantee that with every 9th grade student. In middle school, there tends to be more of a literature circle and small group discussion feel, but it is something that that we're continuing to talk about, especially as we are working on revisiting and revising the 7th and 8th grade experience in English.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so thank you again for your presentations.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you and good night.
Good night, thank you, great job. I think it's interesting that the state was okay if only 89% of the districts didn't teach it. 90 seems to be the trigger. That's interesting. We've got, if you want, we have short presentations on the agenda items, Dr. Gilbert.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just an overview. We have 2 agenda items. We don't normally have voting action at this meeting, but we do. They're timely. One has to do with school start time. While the board hasn't made a final decision on the specifics of school start time, let me just go over some of the recent history. The district's been looking at this for a number of years and commissioned a study to be done by a task force. And that task force reported in 2019 with a recommendation that we re-establish the start times for our 3 tiers, elementary, middle school, and high school. And their recommendation was to have elementary school students go first, high school students to go second, and middle school students to go third. We were in the process of putting together an infographic to gather data on that, and I recommended that we also take a look at middle school going first, then high school, then elementary going last, where they are now. We were going to do that risk analysis, risk assessment last spring. And of course, the COVID-19 occurred, and we were simply not able to do that. And we haven't been able to do the assessment on that, to develop an infographic, to get it out to the community, because of the work that's being done, getting schools ready and dealing with the pandemic. It is our intent, once the secondary schools are back up and running, and we've smoothed out some of those issues, to sit down again and to take a look at that. In the meantime, we wanted to make clear, it's our recommendation, there doesn't seem to be any, well, I'll find out after the board takes a vote tonight, but my sense is people are comfortable with the idea of the middle school, of the high school, excuse me, going second. The question is who goes first and who goes third. That part hasn't been worked out. So the action that we're recommending tonight is for the board to establish its primacy around the high schools going second, so long as we can get lights at the Arnold Field Stadium, because that's going to be critical if we're going to have students going an hour later in the fall because of daylight savings. So that's the first, or that's one of the recommendations. I'm not sure if it's first or not, for this evening. The second one has to do with an adjustment that we're recommending around playing football. Football is still considered a heavy contact sport, contact meaning as opposed to moderate or light. So I think soccer is moderate and golf would be light in terms of viral infection, not necessarily the hitting of the viral infection. We really are, look, as Dr. Rubin from CHOP said, anytime you're leaving your house, there is some risk involved. There is risk involved in soccer and so forth. And I've gotten emails from folks saying, you know, you should do what other districts do. Well, that's really not what we do. What we do is we take a look at what's best for our kids. But I do recognize the fact that I don't want to see them left behind. We've watched other districts. There have been some outbreaks, but relatively few, actually. So we put some safety things together. Let me ask, I see Scott Weinstein here, Tom Ferguson, and Jason Stroop to just run over the high points of the recommendations that we're going to make around football. I'm not sure who wants to be articulate tonight.
I can take
Scott,
it.
Jason, use it.
Yeah, I can take it. So some of the protocols that we've put into place, if we're going to move forward with this, would be to require our student athletes, our football players, to mask 100% of the time, even during gameplay. We've also added splash guards to their helmets, which is an additional face covering on the bottom of their face mask. Some of the other things that we've recommended are, if a team is visiting us at our site, we would have that team mask as well. However, when we visit another person's home site, we would still be masked, but we would honor their home stadium rules for that. Also, for students, we may require our football players to learn virtually, with some exceptions in there for some type of special need that a student would have. And I think those were the main points.
So with that, if it's all right, Dr. Gillett, I open it up to the board for questions on either one of those recommendations.
Actually, I think, do you want to just, I'm wondering if we should just take audience recognition and then go through on each one the way we
Whatever you
usually. I think so, to separate the two of them out. I think that'll give people the opportunity to speak after they've heard public comment. I think we can do that at this point.
you want a 10-minute timer?
Yeah. So I think at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to take public comment at this time on the two issues that we will be voting on shortly, which is the update to our health procedures specifically regarding football, as well as the change in start times for our high school students, depending on if we get lights on Arnold Field. So if you would like to comment on those issues or any other issue, please use the chat feature. As soon as we start, you'll see a clock, a timer. You'll have 10 minutes to submit your chat. Your question in the chat. In order for your question or comment to be shared at this meeting, you must provide your name and generally where you reside within the district, then followed by your comment. And we're asking that everybody submit just one comment or question. So can we please, I think Ms. LaPera will set that up.
The chat feature is now open.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We will now have Mr. Ruth read the public comments, please.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
First is Harry DeCecco, Ardmore. I, for one, know that Harriton and Lower Merion football players are taking great strides to stay safe, and there has been a large increase in wearing masks over the last few weeks. Personally, I believe that being as infectious as COVID is, the likelihood of one team passing it to another is the same as any other sport, because almost all other sports come within 6 feet of one another. That being said, I respect the board's decision to hold off on football for now, but I believe there is no risk inherited by starting football we haven't already seen with other fall sports. Next is Joe Augustine, Coach Augustine, Lower Merion football from Belmont Hills. These players have done everything that has been asked of them and are willing to sacrifice whatever is necessary for them to play. Please approve this tonight and allow them to have the season they have worked so hard for. Next is Mark Fasano, Wynwood. Has any analysis been done regarding how long the bus rides would be for middle schoolers from the Penwyn area out to the new middle school? Next is Phil Cook Jr., Ardmore. If we don't have a season, would we play a series with Harriton and Radnor? Next is Ruth Jenkin, Wynwood. High school students go to sleep when they want to. Changing the start time will give them more screen time. There are students that need to work after school or watch younger siblings. This time change affects those who work adversely. The time to spend millions of dollars for a few football games at this time of mass unemployment is cruel. Next is from Amy Noor, Penn Valley. There's another comment from Lisa Prosnitz, which I'll read in a minute. We write both as parents and residents who have led the advocacy for healthy school start times in Lmsb for 7 years. We fervently hope our district follows the recommendations of all major medical associations to alter our current start times as soon as possible so that all district children can obtain adequate sleep in congruence with their biological rhythms. Many districts nationally and locally have changed or are in the process of changing their start times in order to provide students with the increased physical and mental health benefits and decreased drowsy driving accidents found with healthy school start times. The district maintains that its request for lights on Arnold Field is due to its intention to implement healthy start times. By pushing the high school start time to 8:30 a.m., an hour later than the current 7:30 a.m., LMHS athletes will need lights on Arnold Field to allow for equitable practice of time and games. Lower Merion High School is the only school out of 12 in the Central League, our athletic league, that does not have lights on its field. We are in support of lights on the field, whether they are purchased or rented, and hope that the district and the Arnold Field neighbors can work together toward a reasonable resolution. Perhaps one of the best things to come out of virtual schooling for our high schoolers has been their 9 a.m. start time schedule for school. Families are reporting that their students are getting more sleep, are more effective in their time management, and more engaged in their virtual schooling than they were in the spring. Next is Tiana Washington, Bala Kinwood. I feel that these student athletes should be able to play. They have been practicing for months since the summer, just like every other sports team. It does not seem right to not let them play. Soccer, as you all mentioned, does not wear a helmet or any head covering like football. Plus, the football team has a helmet with a splash guard, which is the closest athletic thing to a mask to prevent COVID. If anyone disagrees, please explain how what soccer wears during their games is more protective than a helmet with a splash guard and a mask underneath. And please be specific. Thank you for your time and have a lovely night. Tracy Coyle, we think the boys should be allowed to attend school on the hybrid schedule and not have to stay virtual if they play football. There are many ways to contract COVID, and playing football does not put them at any more risk than what they choose to do socially outside of school hours. Please let the boys play football and still attend school in person. They've already given up so much. Please don't take a few weeks of in-person learning from them too. Thank you. I'm sorry, they were Marion Station. Next is Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley. We recognize that a change in school start times cannot happen immediately. However, we do ask that the school board and administration recognize the challenges with our students returning to a 7:30 a.m. high school start time. We would ask that the district work to educate our district students and families as to why sleep must be a priority for our students. Many families in this district still do not understand why adolescent sleep is so important, and we believe it is imperative that our community is educated if we want to make this change as smooth and seamless as possible. We would be happy to organize a webinar for district families with a sleep professional on this topic to jumpstart that education. Thank you for all your time and effort in seeking a resolution to meet the health and safety needs of our students while working collaboratively with the neighbors to address their concerns, all in the midst of this global pandemic. We are grateful for the work that you do and wish you and your families well. And we have a repeat comments by people and one that does not have a say where they're from. I believe that's it then.
I think I see a question from Ms. Jenkins.
She had already commented, I believe.
Tracy Coyle had her address at the end of it.
Right. That was the second one from her as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There was one question in there about the transportation time. Our guide is to try and make rides around 30 minutes.
That was the only question I believe embedded in any of the comments.
Well, I do want to make it clear that we have requested permanent lights be placed on Arnold Field. It's the Board of Commissioners who makes that decision. It's not the school board who makes that decision. Okay, so Superintendent Copeland, should we move on then? Okay.
Did you want to? Were there questions from the board? Is that what?
Well, I was going to do that through each. We were going to read each recommended action.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. We don't usually do this at this meeting. Yeah.
You want to do the athletic plan first?
Please.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached amended Lmsb PIAA Athletic Health and Safety Plan and authorizes the superintendent or designee to submit, if necessary, such a plan to the PDE in the form and manner prescribed by the PDE.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask if there are any questions by board members. If you could please. Shana Kalish.
Thank you. I had questions on two topics, but I'll ask my first one first, and then if my second one gets asked by somebody else, then all the better. So one of the things that I saw was in the revised plan was that was including the new rules from the state government that allowed a really big increase in spectators both at outdoor and indoor venues. And I was wondering what planning the district's doing to accommodate that, what we have in terms of maintaining social distancing. I'm especially concerned about indoor sports and how we will ensure that people stay distanced while they're watching sports.
Sure, and I'll turn it over to the athletic directors and principals, but before I do, we also have to comply with Montgomery County Department of Health, and we have to fill out and produce a plan for them when we do have those kind of spectator events, which they have to approve. And may, they say, come on site to inspect on a random basis. So with that,
are the numbers that the county is giving us the same as what the governor's saying?
I believe that they are. I believe the county is more restrictive, aren't they, Jason? Yeah.
Yes,
And
the
our
county
plan
is more restrictive.
And so our plan is in concert with the county's regulations?
It has to be. We have to do a plan. You want to talk? You guys, gentlemen, want to give an overview of some of the things you're thinking about?
Tom, do you want to go, or do you?
Yeah, we've got the capacity of the stadium and the gym, and it's 20% of that. And in the gym, the one side of the bleachers we are using for the volleyball players for the fall volleyball to spread those girls out while they're waiting to play. And I don't have my numbers right in front of me, but I think it allows us to bring, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, 120 people into the rest of the gym and spread them out with mask on to watch their kids play. And our plan is that each player would have 2 tickets for someone on their family to come watch them. And our visiting teams, we would allow a senior player to have 2 tickets for their parent to come watch from the visiting team. So that would keep our numbers down, and that would allow us to have maybe some of our students come and watch their friends play, keeping ourselves under that number of 120. Outdoors, with our capacity at Harriton, and Lower Merion has a little bit more bleacher space than Harriton does. It is 300 people at Harriton, and I think 400 at Lower Merion, and we're using the same system: 2 tickets for every kid at the home team, and senior parents on the visiting team, or 2 tickets for seniors on the visiting team, and then hopefully allow some of our students to come in and watch their friends play as well. Am I missing anything, Jason?
No, those numbers are correct. Our indoor cap is 120 fans, and our outdoor cap at Lower Merion is 400. And also, just to clarify, so the state has changed its numbers. The county is a little bit more restrictive, and what Mr. Copeland was alluding to is that we are applying for permits and waivers to go over that limit for specific events.
And everyone will be masked. All visitors will be masked, whether inside or outside, at all times.
Sean Mooring.
Thank you. Just wanted to get clarity in terms of football playing in particular. That would still be going above the recommendation or outside of the recommendation from CHOP, if I'm reading the CHOP policy lab metrics correctly.
Correct.
So we're just waiving it for football, or just kind of following it for everything with the.
We're taking it day by day. It says that football is the first. What's the nomenclature? Is it high contact or
high risk?
High risk. It's the first high risk sport of the year.
Okay, I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, can you clarify what are the other high risk sports?
They are.
They're not in the fall. What are they, John?
Football and water polo is what's listed in the.
Oh, I forgot about water polo. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
The other sports are wrestling,
okay,
basketball, and I think that's the list.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I guess I was just wanted to be clear that what we were recommending does not fall in line with the guidance that we sought from the CHOP policy lab as it relates to metrics.
Right.
Okay, Deborah Finger.
Thank you. I am appreciative of all the extra measures that you seem to be taking with respect to the masking of the players, as well as the addition of the splash guards. Are these practices and safety measures things that you have you put these past our experts? I mean, I think you've put some good things into place. I'm just curious if you've put, if you have.
I think Mr. Mooring is correct. There's no guards or splash or anything that's going to alleviate it. I know this was a discussion. Terry, do you want to talk about your conversation with
Dr. Rubin?
Yeah.
Yes. He didn't speak specifically about the masks or the face guards, but basically the where we would need to be according to the CHOP policy lab is a number where we clearly won't achieve this year. So I believe a number of districts are, looking at rethinking that, knowing that we're not going to get down to that level of incidents that they originally stated would be ideal for high-risk sports. We also talked about testing athletes, and right now that's not practical or recommended, even by CHOP, because of the expense, because of the time involved. They are looking at, CHOP is looking at getting a very large supply of rapid tests for schools in the Philadelphia area. But the first tier would be symptomatic students and special education students and the staff that work with them. And second tier would be asymptomatic people and athletes. So we're not, we don't have the ability to do testing right now of athletes.
I think that one of the things we've been watching is, I don't know, well, let me ask Jason and Tom. I don't think anybody else is requiring face masks, are they?
There are other schools in the league that are requiring face masks.
Oh, there are, okay. Good. And so I think we've tried, we've watched, and I don't believe we've seen outbreaks, have we?
Not
in football.
No.
So they have a mask and they have the plastic shield. Is that how correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Klein?
Hi, yes, thank you. I wanted to sort of delve a little deeper into the idea of that we may require the football players to stay virtual and what that would mean. The way I sort of see it as a trade-off. We know that this sport is a higher risk, and sort of that trade-off to being able to play that higher risk sport may be having to not bring that into the schools would be to do a fully virtual. So I guess my question is, what do we mean by may, and would it be a requirement? Would there be a process to say, okay, we're starting out by saying you need to be virtual, but we'll individually work with each family to determine if there are reasons why?
That's exactly. We would look to start out everybody virtual, and then on a case-by-case basis, see about a specific student needs and whether we could create a contact tracing process that we could feel comfortable with around that particular student.
And then what would be the length of time? Would it be just through the end of the season? So, if the season ended on a Friday, on Monday, they could, in theory, go back to their cohort?
Sure.
Or would there be maybe a week? So it wouldn't be semester-based. It's not saying if we do this, these students need to be virtual until the end of the semester. It would be sort of during the season.
Correct. That's our thinking right now, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Kalish?
Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Klein, in that it sometimes takes some time for this to show up. So if we were going to look at letting students come back before the end from virtual schooling, we might consider having a buffer of a week or two at the end, just to get through the incubation period. But my question was going back to the masking and what the other teams in our league are doing, because we know that masks are for protecting other people in case we have COVID rather than the other way around. So if I'm concerned that if we're in a situation where our players are masked and the people they're playing against are not, that we're leaving our team open to getting aerosolized COVID on them and becoming at risk in that way. And I'm just wondering if we have a sense of how many other teams that we would be playing will be playing masked, and if any of them might be willing to play masked when we would play them as a sort of requirement / gesture of goodwill.
Well, all the teams we are playing are wearing the splash shield on their the bottom part of their helmet that we are wearing. Currently, I think Radnor, Strathaven, and there may be one other school, Garnet Valley, that may be wearing masks, that are wearing masks as well. It's definitely a conversation. We have a meeting Wednesday, and if it's our position that we need you to, we can ask that and see what kind of reception we get. With volleyball, we started out saying that if we're playing volleyball, everyone has to wear a mask, and the whole league came around to that for volleyball for indoors. So it may be something they're willing to do. We would just have to ask that question at our meeting Wednesday.
Ms. Ackman?
Yes. I appreciate all the creative thinking about safety, but also trying to resume play. We received a lot of letters from people in the community who participate that were very moving. And so anyway, a question I just had is, do you know if any other teams in the Central League are doing testing? I understand the practicalities of why we're choosing not to do that. And also, when does the football season end? Is it Thanksgiving? And so presumably, given maybe a week, the football players and folks involved in football would come back after that. Lucy asked most of my question, but I just wasn't sure how long the season actually was.
So to answer the question about testing within our league, no other teams are doing testing. And I believe for the same reasons that Terry talked about earlier, one being the cost and also the availability and the tier system. And then in regard to the end of football season, the end of the football season will be during the week of Thanksgiving. Some teams are playing Wednesday, some are playing Friday of that week.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the quarantine period is 14 days as recommended by the CDC. Mr. Lee?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to follow up on something Ms. Kalish said, and I was wondering if Ms. Quinlan could weigh in. I thought Dr. Rubin was pretty clear. He said masks don't just protect the other people, they protect the wearer as well, especially because the transmission seems to be based on large droplets, he said. So is that right, or is Ms. Kalish right that it primarily protects the other people, the people surrounding the person with the mask? I was under the impression that it actually offers two-way protection, the wearer and other people.
Well, it is primarily to protect the other person, but it does offer some degree of protection for the wearer. The amount is dependent on the type of mask, the quality of the mask, and so forth. So I couldn't tell you just how much. It gives some protection, but you know, it may not prevent you from getting COVID. It may prevent you from getting a large dose of COVID. It would all depend on the circumstances and the quality of the mask too.
That's what I tend to remember from Dr. Rubin. And, you know, we've all gotten to the point where we get up in the morning with Dr. Fauci, we go to bed, you know, with Dr. Fauci. And my recollection is it's primarily there to protect other people, but it does give some protection to the wearer.
Mr. Moring?
Thank you. And this is just a brief, as we were talking about masks. My understanding is that as the masks get wet, and Dr. Terry, if you know anything about it, I mean, you may or may not, but that I've been told that it's less effective when it's like, if you're sweating and you should actually change your mask. And so I was just wondering if that was something that we were taking into account, and one, if that's something else that we've heard from medical professionals.
Yeah, that's correct. They should be changed if they get wet or compromised in any way.
So, and we do have disposable masks that we have available for the teams. You know, if someone mask rips or gets wet, we have that available with our athletic training.
Ms. Finger?
Thank you. I just going a little further with the mask. So because the mask's efficiency or effectiveness are based on the quality of the mask, would we be able to provide the masks for the student athletes and then replace them, you know, for this season?
I think we're using the disposable surgical masks.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And then out of curiosity, at this meeting that you're having on Wednesday with the other league representatives, would we ever put it out there that, or would it even be a possibility to say that we would only play teams who would be willing to mask their students, or is that out of the realm of our playing? That is, could we say that, you know, in order to play?
We haven't done that yet, but we could. I mean, we're hoping right now to be more persuasive.
Great. Yep. Thank you.
Ms. Klein?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to follow up on the virtual piece of it for the students, because I know that I know that the students, the football teams are currently practicing. And should we pass this tonight, the first game is scheduled for 10/23. So that would be a week from Friday. So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So the students would have those 2 weeks to determine if they wanted to participate, right? Because this is an extracurricular, the students choose whether or not they play or not. And so that would give them those 2 weeks to figure out whether they wanted to play, given these considerations in terms of needing to be virtual. And it also gives the families those 2 weeks to determine if there were any exceptions to the virtual versus being able to be part of the hybrid program. So I just want to make sure I understand that's what the timing is. So if families are thinking about this, that they know what the time frame is.
Yeah, that is the time frame for the game, the 23rd. We do have a scrimmage on the 16th versus Lower Merion, Harrison versus Lower Merion. That is basically we were going to run as a joint practice if this was approved, and that is the timeline.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Ackman?
Yes, I'm just wondering, have the players or families think what their reaction will be that their choice is to play and be virtual or not? And are you worried that maybe some kids will choose to go to school, since everyone's, I think, really looking forward to hybrid in many cases, that it's possible that there may not be enough players. And I'm not at all saying, making a judgment. I'm just trying to get a sense of what you think will happen given these conditions, which, I understand.
I think there may be. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, so far, some of the feedback that I've received directly, I think appreciated the opportunity for choice in making that decision. And then also our colleagues at other schools, Radnor is also requiring their football players to be virtual. And in speaking with their athletic director, they have not received a lot of negative feedback regarding the requirement to be virtual for football.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Kalish?
I apologize, I forgot to unmute. I was just wondering how many games there are in the season, including that LM Harridan scrimmage.
There would be 7, including the scrimmage.
Okay. I just want to say that I understand, first of all, the frustration of our students and the desire for our students to play, and I am not really able to explain why necessarily. I mean, I guess I can. Why soccer would be. I've watched a lot of soccer games, and there seems to be significant contact there as well, although perhaps not as much as football. I'm really concerned about the fact that while we're very lucky that most students who get COVID will not show symptoms, that there's a real concern around sort of the community rates as well. So I mean, we're very, very fortunate that there seems to be less likely for students to get even mildly ill. But I think without this kind of testing for anybody, it's really an increased risk. There wasn't a question there. I'm just commenting because it's of concern to me. Deborah, do you have another question, or was that up from before?
No. It actually, it's something that occurred to me while you were asking your question about the community risk. Will we be looking at the numbers from the other counties and communities and maybe even zip codes where these other schools that we would be playing are coming from, in order to maybe make a decision as to whether that particular game will play on that particular day? Like, will we get that granular with our schedule and our playing and the potential risk?
We do look at it. Most of the schools are in Delaware County. I think TE is the only one no, there's at least 2 from Chester County. 2 from Chester County.
Just one.
Oh, just one. It's hard to look at a particular school. I mean, clearly, if the school were having some reporting, but I don't know if we could look at the county and make a determination on the gain. One of the things I explain to people is we're part of Montgomery County, but we're really not in the epicenter of Montgomery County here. We're really closer to Delaware, but they do break down the numbers for Lower Marion and Narberth, and I can look at those on a weekly basis.
Okay. I think we're done with questions from the board. So if everybody could just unmute yourselves. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. I'm sorry.
Did I hear a second?
didn't get that.
Second.
Oh,
I got it.
we have a second?
I got it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ms. LaPera, can you please do a roll call vote?
Yes. Mr. Mooring,
No.
Miss Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Miss Ackman,
Yes.
Miss Finger,
Abstain? Can I abstain?
Sure.
Thank you.
Miss Klein,
Yes.
Miss Kalish,
No.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
and Dr. Gilbert.
No. So the motion passes. Thank you to all of the administration who came to answer our questions tonight. We really appreciate it, and we wish the teams safe playing. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I saw Mr. Hughes had come in. I want to acknowledge that he came in and hard work you folks have done. Would you like me to move to the school start time?
Yes, please.
School start time action. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors accept the proposed adjustment of the school start time for high schools to begin second rather than first in the district's three-tier schedule for opening of the school day. This action would take place at a future date, provided that Arnold Field has permanent stadium lights.
Okay, I'm going to take questions from the board now.
Excuse me, can I just release my, everybody except Jason's group?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Scott.
I just thought people were going to go, so yes, thank you for attending again.
Oh, I meant of the administration.
Yes, I know you meant of the administration. Are you? So I'm just going to let Shayna ask her question. Shayna Kalish.
Yes, I am pretty sure I know the answer to this. I just want to clarify that what we are voting on tonight is in being in favor of having middle school in the second tier, and that we're not saying anything definitive about the position of elementary and middle.
High school in the second tier.
High school.
Is that not what I said?
No, it's okay. It's been a long night.
Oh my God, Corona brain.
So,
okay.
It's okay. Please don't say that. So,
oh God.
high school in the middle, and we I believe as Mr. Copeland had said, we will be continuing to evaluate elementary versus middle school going first, as we had planned to do in the spring.
Right.
But
okay, thank you for the clarification, and I apologize for my flubber tongue.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Mr. Copeland, did you want to add to that?
No. That's
okay.
Got it right.
All right. Okay. Ms. Klein?
Hi, yes, thank you. I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to say that as someone who has worked on this issue for several years now, and who is a very huge proponent of moving the high school start times back, that I am very pleased that this is before the board and that we are able to publicly show our support as a board, should we pass this tonight, for moving the high school start times back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with questions or comments at this time? This has been a very long-standing issue that we have been methodically working our way through as part of our broader strategic plan and our focus on student-centered education. And, you know, there has been a lot of effort made by the people who were on the appointed committee, as well as many people at the ISC and other community activists who've been organizing around this issue. I'm just looking to see if anybody else has any questions at this time. Nope. Okay, then give me 1 second here. Sorry about that. At this time, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I don't even know who said these things.
I know. I'm sorry. Can I just get the second again?
Sean was second.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Lucy, would you like to start it? I think you probably wanted to.
I'm sorry for the roll call.
I was asking Lucy if she wanted to start it. I was just because I know how enthusiastic she is. I'm sorry, Ms. LaPera, for not going.
No, that's all right. I mean, do you want to do? You need to do the roll
call? We do.
call?
I think we do want to do a roll call.
Roll call.
Okay. Ms. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Ms. Ackman.
Yes.
Ms. Finger.
Yes.
Ms. Kalish.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Mooring.
Yes.
And Dr. Gilbert.
Yes. So again, thank you very much to Mr. Copeland and all of the administration who've worked on this, the committee who's worked on this, and then of course all of the people in the community have worked on this issue, and many of our students as well. So we appreciate that this is that we're able to make this statement at this time, and you know, we're looking forward to working with the Board of Commissioners to try and realize this. Okay, well, actually, I think now is a time for the upcoming meeting dates. Ms. LaPera?
Yes. We have the October 14th ad hoc committee meeting for equity and anti-racism at 7 p.m. And at 8:30 a.m. we have the October 15th facilities and purchasing committee meeting, and then the October 19th regular business board meeting at 8 p.m.
Okay, well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, Ms. LaPera, and everybody have a good evening.